And so the thing about lawsuits is that most employers, and the camera's off, most employers, they're not going to wear a racism on their sleeve. And so what happens is, well, how do I prove that this was because of a racial reason or a discriminatory reason, because I'm disabled or because I'm a woman or whatever, any protected class? That's what it's called Title VII protected classes. And Ohio civil rights laws protect those same protected classes. These are disabilities, race, gender, and religion. Those are just your protected classes. I mean, there's others, but age, those are protected classes. Everything doesn't fall within that. A hot topic that's current now is for the LGBT community, whether that should be a protected class, and it's not currently. So technically, an employer can technically say, you're gay, I don't want you to work here, and you couldn't even sue for discrimination. But back to your original question, it really depends, and whether you can show and prove that the reason that you're being treated differently is because of one of those protected classes, one of those for a discriminatory reason. Because it's very difficult to make those cases, but sometimes you can. And that's why you have lawyers on the other side who engage in a process called discovery, in which they have an opportunity to basically say, let me get a peek behind the curtain, and let me see what's happened in email communications. Was my race ever mentioned? Was the fact that I was pregnant ever mentioned? Were there conversations that were had? Let me, what's called in-depth depositions. Let me depose this person, get a witness, and find out whether any of these things happen, whether they'll admit to it. And so it's a very hard case to prove, but it can be proven. And quite frankly, in our field, what we see is most cases don't get to trial. They just don't in this field anymore. We live in an environment where there are good plaintiffs' lawyers from our perspective. I'm just going to be honest with you, with defendant lawyers field. There are good plaintiff lawyers who take on really legitimate cases where there may be some smoking guns. But then some of us feel like, oh, they just take on any case. And so what happens is employers are getting sued constantly. And so the dirty little secret is a lot of employers eventually will just settle. And so lawsuits nowadays have become, in a lot of ways, a severance payment. That's what happens. You get sued for, somebody will get sued for $150,000, and then at the end of the day sell for $15,000. But for them, the time was well spent because they got something they felt that they were entitled to, maybe because they worked at the company for long. Because sometimes you get in these meetings and people will tell you, I really just felt disrespected. I worked for this company for 20 years, and then all of a sudden they pushed me out the door. And then you're thinking like, you know what, maybe that's true, but at no point, this is from my perspective, did I hear it's because of your race, you're this, or that. And so it becomes a way for people to become made whole in whatever way they feel that they need to be made whole. And sometimes it's not those discriminatory reasons, but it works out that people do